mentioned it in the context of the U.S. withholding data. It was just a warning that according to the scientists from the European Science Institute, raw data is processed in the U.S. and they receive only processed data. There was no accusation that the U.S. was withholding data. But as I said, this is being done by the U.S. Precisely, it should be a warning to us with China that we have to take care of that. And since I have before, just let me say something about the MSU that was begun again during my time. But it was hijacked. I won't say anything more, but it was hijacked from the Christy Ortega would know everything about the origin of the JMSU. We started that in MOA, but it was hijacked and it became a private thing. But the bottom line there is the Chinese provided the equipment. It was, but it was the Philippine scientists who interpreted the data. So I'm just giving information. I'm not trying to create anything here.
No, there's a gap in the information flow because you gather the information from the sea, either the seabed or the sea itself. Okay. And then it will go to the computers, and then somehow whoever is in control of the computer would pass it on to Philippine scientists. But there's a gap there. There is some assurance that all the data that went into the computers would be passed on to the Filipino scientists.
Sorry.
If I may,
it is not passed only to the Filipino scientists. The Vietnamese were there.
Yeah, but even the Vietnamese don't know. Talk to the Vietnamese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the other countries withheld data during an MSR, which is a collaboration between the coastal state and the researching state. It doesn't follow that other countries, including China, would do the same. So I think it's not fair to assume that they will be doing the same. In this MSR with China, as I mentioned earlier, it was a collegial decision by an interagency body. Filipino scientists will be on board. The subject of the research will be to study the ocean currents in the Western Pacific area for weather forecasting purposes. So we are all aware in that body, interagency body, when we consider an MSR application for Philippine consent, that there are activities that are highly regulated or may not even be allowed under Philippine laws. As in UNCLOS and under Philippine laws, a coastal state may withhold consent if the MSR is of direct significance to exploitation or exploration of natural resources, whether living or non-living. Another gray area in UNCLOS, as well as in our guidelines on MSRs, will be hydrographic surveys or military surveys. And another no-no in our guidelines with regard to the conduct of MSR is bioprospecting, because this is highly regulated under, I think it's RA 9147, I'm not sure now, and EO 247 of 1995. Of course, in the newspapers, there is mention that we prefer China over France. This is comparing apples and oranges. The Chinese proposal is on MSR proposal, again, as I mentioned earlier, is to study ocean currents in the Western Pacific for purposes of weather forecasting. The French proposal is bioprospecting, and it will be done in Philippine internal waters in Palawan. Thirdly, since the vessel is so small, they cannot allow participation of Filipino scientists. So based on our guidelines, the feedback that we got from the member agencies of the technical working group, that the proposal as constructed at this time consent will not be granted. So it's not that there were two similar proposals from different countries and we preferred one country over the other. We're always guided by these guidelines on MSR, Philippine guidelines on MSR, Philippine laws, rules, and regulations. With regard to the maritime, the resources in Benham Rise, I'd like to stress that Benham Rise actually is two parts, of Philippine Rise. One would be that part in the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, and of course the continental shelf below 200 nautical miles from the baselines, where Philippines has exclusive sovereign rights and jurisdiction over the resources in this area. And the other part is in the extended continental shelf. This was the one approved by the UN CLCS, Committee on the Limits of the Continental Shelf. Now, Philippines only has jurisdiction in the ECS, Extended Continental Shelf, on the seabed. The waters above the seabed, that's already part of the high seas. So I think it must be stressed that if we see a foreign vessel conducting MSR in the extended the waters above the seabed, in the extended continental shelf, as long as they are not surveying the seabed and the subsoil, then that is part of the freedom of the high seas. Now, I think we also have to balance trust with other countries that would like to collaborate with us in the conduct of marine scientific research. And on the other hand, of course, there is a need to augment our limited resources in terms of survey or making resource assessment of what are available in our waters. So to the extent that we are able to ensure that these MSRs are in accordance with our guidelines, with Philippine laws, rules, and regulations, then we would assume, of course, that this will be beneficial to the Philippines. That is our interest in consideration of MSR requests from other countries. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, may I also ask whether the DFA was aware before entering into this agreement that the survey ship Kexue is part of the PLA Navy and that it would be partly crewed by Navy personnel of the PLA Navy. Are we going to prohibit PLA Navy personnel from manning the survey ship?
I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary, if I cannot answer all your questions. But the vessel, if it was a Navy vessel before, in the conduct of the MSR, it will be used by the Chinese IOCAS, Academy of Sciences, International Oceanographic and Academy of Sciences, IOCAS, in collaboration with UPMSI scientists and other experts from other agencies. As I mentioned earlier, consideration of MSRs is always a collegial review. And in the body, we have members from the Philippine Navy and the Philippine Coast Guard. And I'm sorry that at this point in time, I cannot share with you the discussions in the technical working group. But at the end of the day, it was the decision of that body to approve the request for consent by China to collaborate with the Philippines in the conduct of this MSR. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Siniatas.
Point of order lang po. Can we ask people not to put that in the things?
Audio.
Can we just...
Audio.
Point of order lang, Mr. Chairman, can we ask everyone to just have one meeting? There are meetings conducted over here, and we cannot hear the main discussion. Pwede po kayo? No, sir. There are some people talking at the back. We cannot focus on the main topic.
Kindly avoid talking very loud if you cannot avoid talking. Well, anyway, since I saw Mr. Siniatas, I'm reminded that we were together in Washington, D.C. before at the embassy. And years before I was posted there, I was part of the AFP Intelligence, and I was chair of the AFP Mapping Committee. And there was a request from the U.S. Defense Mapping Agency to conduct aerial mapping of the Philippines for their own use. And of course, with the condition that it will share the information with us. And then later, when I was assigned, close to 5 years later in Washington, I checked with them what happened to the mapping that they did. And I was told, we submitted it to the Philippine Embassy. So I checked around and found all the reels of film in one room at the Philippine Embassy. And it was a good thing that when I mentioned it to the Philippine... When I mentioned it to the Philippine desk of the CIA, it was visiting us occasionally. He volunteered to ship it to the Philippines, and so we were able to get it. So it's also very important that we make sure that if we have commitments to get a result of research or mapping or hydrographic surveys, that we follow up.
Mr. Chair.
You know.
I think one challenge for us is since most of the research that has been done so far is project-based, to put all of this together so that we can build up our database. This is acknowledged. Last September, the Philippine Navy hosted a meeting with the leading scientists and researchers in the country, including Dr. Alcala was there, the UPMSI leading scientists were there, and many from different schools all over the country. And this is recognized. We don't have such a center. It can be academic-based, but right now, most of them are research-based. So at the end of the research, it's very difficult to find where the data are.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, yes,
Yes. Just as a background, I was formerly the Director General of the National Computer Center. I also formed the National Crime Information System. And until recently, I was the Chief Information Officer of PCSO. So I have a background in database management. I think what is important and what is needed to address this issue is to start with the database design. What is really the database design, and what are the available data sets? No? This is already 2018, and we live in a world where there is already